With all the frenzy of politics rapidly taking over and dictating the pulse of national life, what lessons have been learned from Nigeria's democratic experience over the past 7 years and a half? Have the interests of Nigeria's diverse peoples been adequately served by our recent democratic experience? And can the politicians who are currently jostling to have another go at it say for certain that they are driven by a desire to serve those interests? Again, are the processes of governance in Nigeria being effectively interrogated? What needs to be done by all involved in the Nigerian project to ensure the emergence of a democratic order which can unite the people and pull the nation from the brink? Many questions, but to have a conversation around the matter, we're now being joined by Dr. Shola Mos-Shogbamimu, who's a political commentator, author, and a lawyer, as well as a New York attorney and solicitor of England and Wales, human rights activist, and a good governance advocate. Dr. Shogbamimu is the author of This Is Why I Resist, Don't Define My Black Identity. You're welcome to the program, madam. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, Debbie. How are you both doing?
Very well.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you on the show.
Good to have you. Welcome.
Having me.
All right, so let's roll this way. It's an important year for Nigeria, year 2022. Politics is in the air. And a lot of Nigerians, I won't necessarily say for the first time, but then there's a remarkable improvement in the level of interest that Nigerians are showing as to the processes that will lead to electing a new set of leaders and the deal that citizens themselves that they should get. In your own opinion, where do you think citizens should lay emphasis on? Collect your PVC, yes, go out on voting days, show interest, but then it should be a lot more than that. How would you outline for Nigerians what the sort of deal that they should be asking from those who seek to be their leaders?
Oh my goodness, I expect Nigerians to have the highest standard possible. I want us to understand that politics isn't divorced from our day-to-day lives. In fact, politics, if you truly understand it, it's politics that puts the food on your table. It governs the clothes on your back and the roof over your head. So if you understand how significant politics plays in your day-to-day life, you know you need to be engaged. I think we've reached a point in Nigerian politics and the engagement of mass population, especially with recent movements and protests, that Nigerians have quite frankly had enough, particularly from the youth movement, right? And I think it is time for us to understand we have real power. The Nigerian people have real power. And that power could be, let me say, you can look at it in two ways. You've got the voting power and you've got your consumer power. And I'm saying that the deal with politicians, whether it's Nigeria or any other country, should always be that understand that the power lies with me. Doesn't matter if I'm a market trader, if I'm someone who works in an office, if I'm an educator or a student, that power lies in me. So when you think about presidents, senators, you think about ministers, governors, every single person that occupies that space, that office is somebody that you helped put there, either actively or by omission, by engaging or by not engaging. And it is now time, with a year to the February 2023 elections, for Nigerians to say, actually, what do I want from my politicians? And I would say, look, I need you to focus on three things. And this is what I say, whether it's in Britain or anywhere else. It's so important for Nigerians to mobilize. And mobilization can take all kinds of shapes. It simply means the collective engagement and action at a local and national level. It means people saying, actually, I've identified a number of issues that need to be rectified. Then we need to be political. And that being political doesn't mean you need to become a politician, right? There are people who are called to be politicians, let them be politicians, but you need to have the standards by which you will hold them to account. But for the masses, what we need to be thinking is, what form of political activism can I engage in? Whether that is petitioning, boycotting, collaborating with other people on a joint common cause, thinking about your elections. Now, voting, the election voting ballot is the end of that's the final step. what do you do long before then? Yeah, I need people to understand that you can use your career, your business, you as a student, use your influence. And that influence could be the influence you have with your family, with your community, in your school, to engage in real discourse, to help to shape minds and narratives, to break down those, divisive rhetoric and say, actually, this is how we should be doing things. I need Nigerians to come up with solutions, come up with a blueprint that we need, because the reality is that the last 61 plus years, the blueprint we've been using hasn't worked. Now, of course, we must also understand that democracy doesn't work overnight, but there have to be clear steps of progress. And if you are not seeing those steps of progress, then you need to take the power, right, and change it. I mean, I just overheard your conversation about the NNPC and the move to change the constitution on the educational requirement. Absolutely. If the NNPC messed up, their heads must roll. And if there are any criminal liabilities, then somebody must be prosecuted, or people must be prosecuted and imprisoned. And you're right about the education. I mean, your conversation around that educational requirement and the skepticism. But you see, your skepticism is not surprising because of how politicians have ruled this country. And I cannot believe for the life of me that we want to wipe out a generation of people that may be equally qualified, but because of the state of our government and the state of governance, were either denied the ability to complete their education, that they had to find a totally different route. These are the kind of things we must think about. But when I say be active, I need you to understand, when that minister is in his, the rows of cars are taken from point A to point B and being treated with such importance, you are the one that has the power that placed him or her there. We need to demand more and not be afraid to do so.
Understood. Dr. Shola, again, thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. I want to ask you whether or not you can draw a comparison between the levels of accountability between politics and politicians in the United Kingdom, for example, to those and that we have here in Nigeria. If we use currently the turmoil being displayed in the UK as it pertains to the Prime Minister and his flouting of his own lockdown rules and the levels of accountability that he's had to face, whether it's the independent report or being battered at figuratively, of course, being battered at Prime Minister's questions. I wonder if you can draw a parallel to that level of accountability, even if it doesn't amount to anything here in Nigeria. It does feel as though there's a bit of a disconnect when you look at it through that prism. What do you think?
Well, Femi, I think you've actually hit the nail on the head when you said, even if it doesn't amount to anything. I think that the process of holding our public officials to account is absolutely important. And you can see that evidence in the United Kingdom. And I think that is great. But I don't, for the life of me, I do not believe that Nigerians are not trying to hold their public officials to account. It is how much attention is being paid to what Nigerians are saying. Because, Nigerians are very good at having this conversation over a cup of tea, over a good plate of jollof rice, in the office, on the streets. Very good at it, but are people paying attention? And let us be right here. I do not think for 1 second we should be looking to draw parallels, because at the end of the day, the governance structure in the United Kingdom is not perfect either. Or else why would you have someone of Boris Johnson's caliber as Prime Minister? And the fact that he has not been removed yet tells you that the problem is truly deep, just as you find in Nigeria. So I would say what Nigerians need to be thinking of is this: the next elections are coming up. What is the caliber of individual I want as a minister, as a governor, as a president, as a vice president? What kind of policies do I expect to see? Where does where in my shoe, where does it hurt? And how does it hurt my neighbor? Because we really need to move away from this mentality of me, myself, and I, me, myself, and my family, me, myself, and my town. Because if you aren't thinking about what affects your neighbor, and your neighbor isn't thinking about what affects you, then we don't have each other's backs. And I think this applies equally irrespective of what political governance you're looking at. So if you want to take a look at the UK, people, remember, one of the things that the colonial masters left as part of his legacy was bureaucratic corruption. Okay, and that still exists. And it looks like what Nigerians did in the 61 years, and I'm talking about Nigerians in government, is that they capitalized on that, and they benefited from that. We need to put a stop to that. Corruption exists in every other country you can think of. There's always some measure of corruption, and when you can't hold your public officials to account, that is also corruption, because corruption is not just about money. It is the abuse of public office for private gain. So I want Nigerians to look inward, right, rather than looking out and go, oh, who can we be like? No, Nigeria needs to be like Nigeria. Nigeria is a nation of nations. It's time for us to bring together our collective strengths, recognize our collective weaknesses, work on those, but genuinely seek for the kind of change that can have generational impact. Wipe the slate clean in the name of all that is good. We can't keep having the same type of people, the same people controlling the corridors of power, continuing to do so, and you know who they are. So don't vote for that person. Don't vote for that party if that's the case, but be actively engaged. Use the mouth God gave you. Use the feet God gave you. Use the influence you have. Use your business, your career. Use everything you have to change the narrative on politics today. It will start small, but you will get somewhere.
All right, Doctor. I mean, I like what you said earlier about if the blueprint for development is not working, tweak it, improve on it. And one set of people that has done very well in interrogating the process and, making useful suggestions is the Nigerian diaspora in the UK, in the US, almost everywhere. We saw the contributions that they made 2 years ago during the NSAS protest. It wasn't just a protest for them. It was an opportunity to interrogate the system and engage with the people, solidarize with them, etc. We've also had the CBN governor, Governor Emefiele, saying that there is a remarkable increase in the amount of remittances coming from overseas, from about $60 million to about 100 weekly, which is a huge amount of money coming from the diaspora. But then those in the diaspora are not able to vote. So my first question to you is, how do you think that the Nigerians in the diaspora should continue to engage, even if they are not able to directly? I know that they have indirect ways to influence voting patterns, but then if they are not able to directly vote, how do you think that they should vote? They should continue to engage. And secondly, I would also like you to talk to us about your book, This Is Why I Resist. What are you resisting?
Well, let's touch first of all the diaspora.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I see no reason why Nigerians in the diaspora who are citizens shouldn't be able to vote. After all, there are other countries who allow their citizens who reside in other countries to partake and participate in elections. So there should be a case for Nigerians to be able to vote. But this is where I come in with, if that is not happening right now, this is now understanding what your consumer power is. Understand that politics and politicians cannot run without donors. They cannot run without influence. I would definitely encourage those in the diaspora to build their influence back in Nigeria, to help shape the conversation from industry to industry, whichever industry you represent and you're strong in, have a voice in that industry and shape how that industry engages in politics. And if people say to you, someone says to you, oh, we are not politically engaged, this is not the right thing, tell them that they're lying, because everybody is politically engaged and should be politically engaged. I would say, look, like I'm sitting here having a conversation with you. This is me actively also taking part. It also means that those in the diaspora have to be engaged on the current news cycles. They have to be engaged on who is doing what and calling for accountability and transparency. When you need to draw parallels, by all means do so. But as I've said before, it's not just about drawing parallels. It's about saying, actually, we know enough now. We know enough now to say, this does not work for us as a nation of nations. So we want to try this. We need to rewrite that blueprint. And I think that those in the diaspora and those in Nigeria can work together. But it has to be in a way that is open, transparent, and honest. Okay? Because when there's a lack of trust in the common cause, it means that that bridge cannot be built. It will just be permanently broken.
Understood.
All right, you were going to say something about the book. This is this is why I resist.
Yes. So
Just
this
quickly,
is why I
yeah.
resist.
Okay.
So I wrote This Is Why I Resist because I got sick and tired of the, I'll be perfectly honest, I was just sick and tired of the conversations around race, racism, and race relations. How we engage, whether it's from nation to nation or individual to individual, and how we engage on this conversation about what it means to be a Black person, what it means to be African, African American, Afro-Caribbean. And I'm saying we're going to take back the narrative because, you see, I am Black and proud. I am of African descent. I am Yoruba for that matter. So the blood in my veins are something to be proud of. Who I am as the British national and the Nigerian national are something to be proud of. I am not going to be ruled by these stereotypes. I'm not going to be ruled by certain rules that are there to put people like me and who share my skin color down. So what I do in this book is talk about, political issues. I talk about social and racial injustice. I draw real parallels using current issues. I am blowing the lid off. I am not holding back. I'm not sugarcoating the words because I don't have time for that. And I'm plainly stating this is why we should resist against the continued dehumanization of Black people and people of African descent all over the world.
Wonderful.
All right, thank you so very much. It's just a pity that that's where we will have to draw the curtain for this segment of the interview. It's been brilliant speaking with you, Dr. Shola Mos-Shogbamimu.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.